You can find me at Aaron Hill TV, V at Aaron Hill TV, V at Aaron Hill TV, V at Aaron Hill TV, .TV on IG.
I will not be attending your exhausting Zoom gathering. So this is an article response video, and I happened to be browsing on Google and came across this, and so it caught my attention, so I wanted to read it and respond to it. If you're watching live, I just put the link in the comment section, and if you're watching afterwards, it's in the description. I will not be attending your exhausting Zoom gathering. This is by Christina Carterucci. At the beginning of this stretch of self-isolation, I craved the sight of my loved ones' faces. Seeing them on my laptop screen and hearing about their lives would briefly drive out the loneliness and disorientation of my newly apartment-bound life. Lending my day a pretense of normalcy that would last for hours after our calls. I can relate to that too. Hey Yvette, thanks for hanging out. Andre, thanks for hanging out. But over the nearly 2 months that I've been replacing cocktail parties and dinners out with Zoom chats, I've noticed a change. Specifically, Zoom Hangouts drive me nuts. I've tried to parse what makes Zoom so exhausting for me. I feel like an emotional, bereft alien struggling to comprehend the mysteries of human connection. That's interesting. I can understand that. What makes a meet space gathering a life-affirming source of intimacy? My cat is over here playing with pistachio shells on the floor. You want to say hi? Okay, not right now. All right. What makes a meet space gathering a life-affirming source of intimacy, and a digital one a simulacrum? I never heard of that before. Never heard that word. That'd be the next word of the day. SIMULACRUM. Hugging my friends is nice, but really seeing and hearing them and having them see and hear me is what I like best about our time together. If I can do that just fine on my computer, why doesn't it feel the same? My internal alien has identified the lack of normal eye contact as one central pitfall of the video chat experience. Talk to someone over FaceTime or Zoom and they'll never quite meet your eyes. They'll spend the call looking at their screen a few inches below or to the side of their camera, giving you the perpetual feeling of trying to get the attention of someone who's ever so slightly preoccupied. Once, on a Skype call many years ago, a friend looked directly into her camera to say something heartfelt to me with the approximation of true eye contact. The effect was jarring. I didn't fully realize that we hadn't been making eye contact until she was suddenly staring straight into my soul from inside my screen. So I'm actually going to try that here. So right now I'm actually looking directly at the camera, the little teeny camera on my iPhone. And usually I wouldn't do that because of the fact that I feel like I'm looking more at people if I look here and if I look here. Like if I see my homie Daryl Williams, say hello to him. How you doing, bro? Good to see you, man. Yvette, Andre, everybody else here. I feel like I'm looking more so at you when I'm looking in this direction because I'm looking at your names and at your comics. But the truth be speaking, if I wanted to look directly at you, I would be looking this way. So and I like to play with psychology, or I like the fascination of it. So with that, tell me, even as I'm looking here, do I feel more connected to you looking this way? I can imagine that I would. And what I probably should do from now on is start to glance back and forth from time to time. So that way I can, like here, like she's saying, I can make sure that connection is there. So anyway, she says, I didn't fully realize we hadn't been making full eye contact until she was suddenly staring straight into my soul from the inside of the screen. She was gazing at her computer's eye, not mine, and could actually see less of my face than when she was looking at the screen. That's what I just said too. Yet I felt strangely, uncomfortably exposed. When I recently tried it on a video call with my niece and nephew in an attempt to make them laugh, it gave me the unsettling impression of carrying on a conversation with HAL 9000, HAL 9000, which is, I guess, the name of her camera, who've been watching me watch the kids throughout our call. FaceTime, perhaps even more eerily, has a new feature that attempts eye contact correction to make it appear you're looking directly at each other even when you're not. That's strange. That's probably like cool, but that's kind of strange to me at the same time. Even if you don't think you miss locking eyes with your loved ones or colleagues, your brain might. Eye contact plays a documented role in successful human communication. One 2017 study from the University of Cambridge found that when infants and adults locked eyes, their brain waves were better able to synchronize. That's pretty deep. A 2019 study from the National Institute for Psychological Sciences in Japan suggests that eye contact primes the baby for empathy. We're also, wow, that's deep right there. I gotta stop on that tip and look you right in your eyes. My computer eye, my phone. That's really interesting right there. I mean, to think about that, because, you know, empathy is something I talk about regularly. And I do believe, especially in person-to-person contact, that connecting with people in that way, locking straight into their eyes, you know, really giving them your attention, taking the time to show them like that you care and that you're listening, that it makes a difference, you know. Yeah, so I can really understand that. So what I'm going to do is divide up my time between the two, looking here because that's when I feel connected to you, and looking here because that's when you feel more connected to me. So that's really interesting. We're also accustomed to picking up on messages our interlocutors send with their bodies, which give us clues about their comfort level, the direction and intensity of their focus, and whether they are preparing to speak. A typical video call impairs these ingrained abilities. A typical video call impairs these ingrained abilities and requires sustained and intense attention to words instead, which is what I'm watching here. Words like that my friends are entering the building. So Julia Sklar wrote in a National Geographic piece about Zoom fatigue. Whether a viewer's screen displays several participants in a conference or just one, according to Sklar, the brain becomes overwhelmed by unfamiliar excess stimuli while being hyper-focused on searching for nonverbal cues that it can't find. That's really interesting, because I understand every bit of that. A couple years ago, I was showing a friend of mine something on the computer, and I had my laptop, and I was showing this person some stuff on my computer, and as I was using my mouse to go where I wanted to on the screen, he was an older gentleman, and I noticed he was like looking at every single place where the mouse moved. And I noticed that, and I was like, wow. I didn't say anything to him because, you know, it was the way that he was keeping up. But I was thinking to myself, like, that's gotta be really fatiguing, like just looking everywhere like that. And for me, being a person who uses the computer way more than he did, I kind of sit back and I don't follow the mouse everywhere. My eyes can just see where it's going, even if somebody else is using it. I don't have a need to follow it that much. But because he didn't use the computer, the way his psyche worked was to just follow the thing. So I can understand, you know, in that way, when you're interacting with people and there's much more to look at and pay attention to than to just focus in on their eyes, that really can be overwhelming to the brain. And I can understand the Zoom fatigue. And the fact that your brain is searching for nonverbal cues all the time because of being used to a particular kind of interaction. This gets at another reason for video chat fatigue, the opposite of the eye contact problem. You have to look at each other's faces the entire time. There are rarely natural breaks in conversations on Zoom, as there might be a typical group dinner or coffee date, and it's much harder to have a comfortable silence or manage an uncomfortable one. Stop clawing on my chair. Hey, you want to say hi? Come say hi. You're making all this noise. You're not. Oh, so you're just gonna grab? She just grabbed everything she could to not come up. Well, all right then. okay. You know, I really didn't want to show you to the world anyway, you know. Rick, thanks for hanging out. Tony, thanks for hanging out. So I really do understand this. It says it makes it harder to have a comfortable silence or manage an uncomfortable one when all parties are staring at one another nonstop. There's no peeking out a window, no studying a menu, no people watching, no helping out in the kitchen or asking about a host record collection. There's only talking, and in a video chat with more than 2 participants, striking a normal conversation rhythm is nearly impossible. Now that part I do understand. I thought about that as I've been in Zoom chats. I have paid attention to like when I speak because I don't want to interrupt, because you can only hear one person at a time, and like she's saying, you don't have those other cues to be able to feed off of to have a natural rhythm. So, you know, it's a lot different. So they said that she said that add in differing internet lag times and the inability to hear multiple people speaking at once, and every group discussion becomes group monologuing, as Ashley Fetters termed it in The Atlantic. The patron saint of lively repartee rolls over in her grave with every, wait, what was that? Sorry, you go ahead. And hang on, you just froze. That is true. The whole conversation differs. On a very funny tip that for some people might be like literally aggravating or annoying, and to other people like myself that are full-time fools, this video that I'm gonna tell you about is hilarious. Look up Key and Peele, Key and Peele, Peele. Look up Key and Peele Skype conversation. It's a Skype conversation that's supposed to happen and never happens, but they're trying to talk it. So you'll see the rest. I won't spoil the rest. Yeah, so it's really interesting when you think about it. So she says, you know, then there's the part where I have to look at myself in real life. Where I have to look at myself. In real life, entire minutes can pass by without my thinking about the angle of my chin, the texture of my skin, or the shadows under my eyes. It's much harder to feel fully immersed in the company of family or friends when my attention is split between the content of the conversation and a moving image of my own face. Each glance to check whether I'm properly framed in the video feed takes me out of the exchange, redirecting some of my scattered focus back toward myself and inhibiting the ego suppression that marks moments of true intimacy. Wow. So she has the psychology of this thing broken down to a science. And I like the way she's putting it too, because it's real eloquent. It makes me think about how I've been doing this for a while. You know, many people see me on camera and they're like, wow, you look so natural. You feel so natural on camera. Well, the truth be told, like right now, I'm moving my hair. I'm looking at myself. I'm looking at you, and I'm also engaging. It doesn't feel awkward to me anymore, even though I'm in a room, like, for all intents and purposes, talking to myself. You know, but it takes time to get used to, and I can understand for some people how it's like ridiculously hard to get used to, and then some people like myself, I just feel at home in front of the camera. Yeah, so I've been able to get over like the self-conscious thing on the camera. You know, one thing I like to do is this. I like to come on camera doing stuff like combing my beard and stuff like that, and using the camera as a mirror. And the reason why is because it allows you to let go of being self-conscious immediately. I mean, after you've combed your face on camera, or like look to see if you had anything in your teeth on camera, then like, what do you have to be afraid of after that? Like, yeah. So that's how it works. So yeah, I think these are things that you could do to help. You just have to get used to it. You know, Zoom conversations are not only around now, but they will be around in the future. There's going to be some people, some organizations, some groups, some corporations that realize, that doing this Zoom conferencing thing is really, really helpful, and they might switch their whole formulas to that, or some of their formula to be able to save, on gas or time, or to make it more convenient for people. Like, it's going to be a part of our mix. So we might as well just start to prepare and get used to it. And that's why I'm reading this article, because I do understand both sides of the coin, All right, anyway, here's the last part of this. We're about maybe halfway through. So she said, don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to being looked at. In fact, since the start of the COVID-19 lockdown, I've developed a new appreciation for the now lost joys of seeing and being seen in person. Andre, thanks for hanging out. Occasionally, before a Zoom call, I'll put on a glitzy dress and mascara to mimic the anticipatory buzz of getting ready for a night out. But video chatting offers the worst of both worlds when it comes to this peacocking. I don't get a break from looking at myself when I enter a room with friends, and they can't fully appreciate my eyeliner. I'm more conscious and sometimes critical of my own appearance, and none of us can see one another's shoes. Jason, thanks for hanging out. That's true. As well as you can't see things like what I have on below this shirt, or if I have anything on. I do. In this case, I do, but you never know. In other words, on a video call, there's too much information about the self and not enough about the others. All right, you ready to go out? Okay, she's ready to go out. And so now I'm going to let my cat out because she is ready. She's done hearing me talk about how she can get better at seeing you all on live stream. Anyway, hold on one second, y'all. All right, I'm ready to let you out. You good? You ready to go? It's all good. You're welcome. So usually when I let her out, she gives me this she turns around and is like, meow. It's like a thank you, like, thank you. All right, anyway. So too much information about the self and not enough about the others. Fully aware of my every fleeting facial expression, thanks to my front-facing camera, I find myself over-remoting to make sure my reactions come through when those little verbal accents and acknowledgments that keep conversations flowing get lost. Social instincts that usually require little conscious effort are now taking up space in my brain. I can understand that. Draining the energy I used to devote to the substance of a conversation. That really is something to talk a lot about, because when you prepare for a Zoom call, you prepare in a whole different way than if you were just kind of hanging out with some people, I still lean on the optimistic side, though, where I say that we're learning and gaining more skills than anything else. Like, we're adding dimension to us. So in the future, we'll better understand how to feel natural and flow through mediums like this and not feel so awkward, as well as our, live and in-person meetings. It won't ever take the place of it. I don't think it's supposed to. I just look at it like adding depth to it. Renee, thanks for hanging out. Like, even this aspect, I talk about this all the time. For years, I think back into the, I'm an 80s baby, right? So I think back in the 80s when this wasn't possible. It wasn't possible for me to have a thought and to be able to bring that thought to hundreds, thousands of people at one time, just like from my phone, where they could talk to me and see me and I could say hi, and then I could do stuff like this and press buttons and wave to them and impart information that might help them when I figure it out and stuff like just wasn't possible. So it offers a lot of benefits. And so my deal is, instead of demonizing things, like, let's just look at the benefits and let's just, work with the benefits, understand the cons, because everything has cons, and then just work to balance it out. It's not going anywhere. So the best thing is to get used to it. All right, so I'm going to make a quick switch to take my microphone out and plug in my charger because my phone's about to die if I don't. So she said, if it all sounds, if all this sounds like I'm expecting far too much of an already futuristic and undoubtedly valuable technology, that's because I am. Video chatting used to be an upgrade on the alternative. Why would I email my friends who live in Bangkok when I could see their smiles, their new apartment, and their newborn? To be able to converse face-to-face from opposite sides of the planet with crisp video quality and only a minimal time lag seemed like a miraculous gift of the tech age. But these days, when video chatting has to stand in for a whole social life's worth of in-person contact, it feels like a massive downgrade. Every Zoom call brings a painful reminder of what quarantine life is missing. There's no cruising at the virtual sex party. There's no cruising at the virtual sex party. No quiet side conversations at the virtual group dinner. That is true. You can't have. Now, it's interesting because like with Zoom, you can have breakout rooms, which I'm going to use to that way for other people that kind of have conversations. Or I want to actually use it for games where we can break up into teams and we can split and come back. But it's true. You can't have on the side conversations like you would. You know, the virtual disco is a depressing grid of homebound people staring at their screens from behind their coffee tables, watching themselves dance for other people who might not even be looking at them. At the virtual birthday party, it's impossible to sing to the honoree in unison. When I hit the leave meeting button, I'm back where I started, lonely and alone, missing my friends, facing down the device I associated with all my most stressful work hours and consumption of bad news. She really is hitting on some stuff, you know, and I, you know, I want to say, you know, I try to avoid pessimism as much as possible. But she's hitting the nail on the head, and I like it because it's more so realistic than pessimism. I still don't think we have to stay there, but neither does she. Sometimes during my third week of lockdown, I realized I was starting to get comfortable with my new normal. My wife and I had found a more sustainable working from home rhythm. I no longer felt deflated when I remember that I had no weekend plans, and I enjoyed the extra time to cook and read. As I read about restaurants and theaters struggling from day to day to stay afloat while shut down, I begin to worry that even when public spaces could safely reopen, people would have gotten so accustomed to spending their free time at home and socializing from afar, they'd fail to return to these social gathering places. I kept thinking about something my remote work slate colleague and former Dismemberment Plan frontman Travis Morrison said at the beginning of our work from home spell about spending too much time in front of a screen. The computer, he said, can't start to seem like the thing that the world is in. And then this is the last part right here, and then this article is done. Okay, last paragraph. For many of us, the world inside a computer will prove an inadequate scratcher of most of our basic human itches. Now that I'm surpassing 2 months of social isolation, I no longer fear for the future of IRL gatherings. For one thing, my comfort in quarantine ebbs and flows. One day I'm happy to eat a nice lunch at home rather than an overpriced salad at my desk. The next, I'm crawling out of my skin, craving a messy night out. More important, this quarantine has given 21st century humanity its first glimpse at what it might feel like to confine even more of our lives to the world behind the screen. And it's a deeply unsatisfying view. Video chatting is exhausting. Live streamed events are a snooze. Turns out virtual life is a sorry substitute for a real one. Maybe that's a good thing. And that's the end of this article. I think this was a great article, once again, by Christina Cauterucci. And, you know, I want to say this. She has a lot of good points. I really feel that the most appropriate way to look at this is not to look at it as a replacement for real life activities, not to look at it as a substitute, even though right now for many of us it is playing a substitute. You know, and that's why I like what she's saying, because she's at least pointing out some things that we need to know in order to understand the cons as well as the pros of this kind of interacting. No, this can't replace hugging a person, being in front of them, seeing their reaction, shaking their hand, hitting them on the shoulder when you laugh. Like, it can't replace that. I think the most healthy way to look at this is to not think that it's supposed to, or not look at it like it's supposed to. Brother Yusef, how's it going? See, this is one of the benefits of this kind of conversation. And I want to talk about that for a few minutes. Let's talk about the benefits that the virtual conversation has that the actual in-person conversation doesn't. So there's no way that I could do what I just did in a real life conversation, where someone who is nowhere near me in proximity could just be with me and I can say hello to them and they can see what I'm up to and what I'm doing, and I can say hi to them and see how they're doing. Not like that. I look at really Zoom conferencing and video chatting and live streaming, I really look at it as like an advanced three-way calling system. And I think if you look at it that way, then it puts everything into perspective. This is literally just advanced three-way calling. You know, in the mid-90s, or maybe early 90s, whenever it happened, we had the ability to take our phones, and instead of just calling one person, we got a chance to call several people and talk to them at the same time. Zoom conferencing is advanced three-way calling. You have the ability to not only talk to multiple people at the same time, but see them and send them messages on the side in another chat, and send them links to things you want them to see, which links weren't even a thing in the 90s. You could send them something. I mean, imagine having this conversation in the 90s. Like, imagine being able to say, you know, like, I'm thinking about while I was using three-way, if someone had said to me, hey, so you like this three-way thing, huh? Well, soon this thing is gonna be like three-way on steroids. Hey, Miss Gianna, thanks for hanging out. Lovely Miss Gianna. You know, you're gonna have three-way on steroids soon. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, instead of just calling, you know, two of your friends and being able to talk to them, you're gonna be able to call hundreds of your friends at the same time. And you're gonna be able to see them, and you're gonna be able to show them things that you want them to see. And I might say, oh, so you mean like if I want to hold up this microphone and tell them that this is the microphone that I use for all my let's see if I can put this close so you can see. This is the microphone that I use for all my stuff when I'm recording. The Shure MV88. For those watching, it's an iPhone microphone. I have a whole video on it. Go check it out. But if I'm like, oh yeah, you mean, and they're like, well yeah, that, but also you'll be able to just like literally show them a high definition version of that if you want them to see where they can buy that. Like, I'd be like, what are you talking about? And I can send them messages while I'm talking to them. I can actually send them written messages. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what I would have been saying in the mid-90s. What the hell are we talking about right now? You know, and then if you said like, yeah, and then you also be able to record that three-way call, so that like, if you're having a three-way call where you're talking about, you know, teaching people something and helping them out with music, or talking to them about, you know, how to avoid carpal tunnel syndrome, like you'll be able to record that, and then you can, others of your friends can watch that too on like your own television station that's called YouTube, that you can name and customize. Like, I'd be like, what are we talking about right now? Like, that's bananas. Our brains couldn't even fathom that kind of stuff, right? Well, some of us did, and that's why we got on to inventing it, but many of us couldn't fathom that. So I would have been blown away. And I wouldn't have at all thought like, oh man, like, so this is meant to take the place of seeing my friends in person? Like, not at all. I've been like, wow, that's an amazing extra benefit. Yeah, and then also in addition to that, you'll be able to send this to others of your friends. You'll be able to take pictures while you're on camera together and make silly faces like, you know, and you'll be able to put like other things over your face so that all of a sudden out of nowhere, you have like these things around you, like, let's see if I can get it in. You know, you'll have laughy faces around you, and then your face will look like a dog, and when you stick out your tongue, it'll look like a tongue sticking out of your mouth. And, you know, if you want to have some nice flowers around you while you're just hanging out, like, I'm just saying, these things would not have been a thought. So it's an advantage thinking about it that way. And yes, it has its real cons, for sure. You know, has its real cons. Right now, we're just forced to use this to replace things. But what I get excited about is that we've been forced to actually develop a new appreciation for something. We've been forced to actually learn how to communicate in a different way that at times and for certain things is way more important than meeting in person. The whole other article that I would write about this, and maybe that I will write, is just like, what about all the meetings that this is like a solution of, because you didn't want to drive halfway across the city, or you really didn't want to be sitting with this person because it was going to be too frustrating, and you'd rather do a quick call. What about when it was like, you know, you were able to attend way more meetings, you know, for things where it was just kind of in and out. It was about going down some information, listening. And in fact, you could listen while you were doing something else, and you didn't have to take the time out to drive and go use gas and sit, you know, in somebody's place. You could just do it while you were multitasking and be like, yep, cool, got it, boom, send that to me. And you can get 50 meetings done in a day instead of 12, you know. And so, you know, there's so many other ways that this benefits our life. So I really appreciated this article. I like looking at it from both sides of the spectrum, and I like being able to see things for the pros and cons, and then to focus on the pros, and to not be weighed down by the cons. If we don't look at this as the thing that's supposed to replace our social gatherings, then this is the greatest thing ever. If we look at this as something that I wonder if people are going to value physical gatherings again, we're looking at it the wrong way. Of course they will. There's nothing. Like, I tell this to people all the time. This is another quick rant. And I gotta say this for everybody out there, for all the artists and musicians that are on this, like, I don't live stream because then people won't come to shows. Dude, sis, like, people aren't gonna come to your shows if they aren't gonna come to your shows, period. Like, if a person does not want to get out and support you, they're just not gonna get out and support you. They're not gonna then not get out and support you because they can watch you live. Because everybody that experiences music or experiences art or something else knows that there is no better experience than experiencing it live. It cannot take the place of it watching it on a computer screen. So to be honest, it doesn't affect your numbers. But if you flip your brain and stop thinking about it like it's either that people will attend or not watch me, and you use it to actually reach more people, you use it to reach the people who then you're able to gain their interest because of the fact that they got a chance to sit down and watch you. Then you realize, or when you do something like put it on a Facebook public figure page, and then you realize what you were doing in the video, who you are, and who that might appeal to, and you take that and you put lunch money, $1, $5, $10 on it, and you strategically get it in front of the people who you are their cup of tea and they just don't know it yet, but as soon as they know it, then boom, like you've made a new friend. Like, this stuff is all mindset. And it's optimism versus pessimism. It is glass half empty versus glass half full. The other way that I thought about this over the years, and I used to talk about this way before this technology, was with burning CDs. I understand because I'm an artist, so I understand, like, well, as Erykah Badu said, I'm an artist, so I'm sensitive about my shit. So I get the idea of, like, okay, I don't want people to burn my CDs because, then everybody will burn. But I thought about it one day and I said, wait a minute, let me think about this thing for a second. So if there's a person who wasn't going to buy my music, period, because they just didn't have the interest, they didn't have somebody else validating it or giving them the recommendation, that's really the deepest, like, form of connecting to something is being recommended by somebody you trust. Like, if a person doesn't have that, and so they have no interest to check out my music at all, well, if they weren't going to buy it anyway, then I would love for them to have a burned copy of my project, because that might be just enough to allow them in the future to say, like, to become a diehard fan and purchase my product. Or they may not ever purchase it, but if my bottom line is to heal and to touch the world through music and musical vibes, then I've actually accomplished my goal. And if I'm not with this, or at least open to it, then that kind of actually really questions my whole motive. Like, yes, we need to make our ends meet, but I'm just a person who believes in, like, the rule of reciprocity. I really believe that, like, the more you give, like, the more that will just come your way from giving. And not saying it's a binary thing, like it always happens, but just in general, like, you're creating a kind of environment, you're creating an aura, an ambience of giving. And, like, anyway, so y'all get what I'm saying, And so I just always felt like, wait a minute, if a person, like, if a person has a burned copy of a CD and they weren't going to buy a CD, they weren't going to buy it anyway, so you're not losing money. Like, you're not actually losing money. They weren't going to buy it anyway. You're possibly gaining a new friend, a new follower, a new family member, or you saved somebody's life. And that's worth it if you really are down for the cause, and, like, you're really about what most people say, which is, like, really just touching people with whatever it is. You could replace it with whatever you want. Keith Matthews, thanks for hanging out. So I just really feel like it's glass half empty versus glass half full. Let's not look at these Zoom gatherings as a thing that's supposed to replace. Let's just look at it right now as an aid to help us to continue to connecting during a time where we physically can't connect. And then let's know from an optimistic place that in the future, what that means is when we get to our new norms that we are creating right now, then these will be wonderful branches added onto the equation. Now, if you work at your job and they used to call you, used to have to go in on Mondays to just sit there all day for staff meetings, chances are they're going to use Zoom to do their staff meetings, because even the boss who gets on your nerves doesn't really feel like driving if she or he doesn't have to. Guess what? New things in the equation, Or it could be like my favorite entrepreneur, Gary Vee. He talked about this like a couple weeks ago. He said, and he runs 1,000-person company, 1,000-person media agency where he is there every day for at least 16, 17, 18 hours a day, and you could check him out online, Gary Vee, check him out online. And he said in one of his Zoom, live streams, his daily Zoom live streams, he was saying, he said, I never thought I would say this, but as much as I keep working home separate and I'm at work, he's like, I'm actually thinking about doing a mandatory day where we stay home. He said, because I've gotten so much accomplished in these days. And what he's talking about is exactly what I hit on. And when it comes to the meetings, he has a lot of meetings every day. So to be able to do those meetings back to back and not to ever leave his home or change, locations, or other people have to come in, he can actually get more meetings done. And for him, he's about efficiency and getting the most bang out of your buck. So that's my response. I know it's kind of long. I went on a couple rants, but that's my response. I'm gonna read a couple comments and we're out of here. Keith says, gatherings as a thing that's supposed to replace gatherings as a thing that's supposed to replace. Let's just look at it right now. You help us to continue to connecting. Thanks a lot, Keith. And that's what I'm saying. That's really what it's about. It's about not replacing, but using it as an aid. It's an aid. And as long as you think about it as an aid, then you don't think about it as having to replace. Peace, brother Youssef. How are you, sir? Yeah, so that's about it. Drop a line with your thoughts about this. Take it from the top if you just got here. And yeah, this is yet another article response. Take care. As always, peace.
Yeah. So to help me to make more content like this, please see the info in the description or comments. Thanks so much for watching. And if we're not already connected on all my other homes, the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, etc., where you can find me at Aaron Hill TV, V at Aaron Hill TV, V at Aaron Hill TV, V at Aaron Hill TV, .TV on IG.